have a couple more people coming in, and then we'll get started. Just 1 minute, okay? Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Hi. On behalf of County Manager Diorio and the Mecklenburg County Board of Commissioners, I'd like to welcome you all here. We are so grateful to have you here and have so much interest in helping us accomplish the board's goals. My name is Lauren Tayara. I'm a management and budget analyst with the county, and I'm also the budget lead on the CSG program. You probably received several emails from me already. I'm joined by Grant McMillan. He's the lead analyst on the performance side of things, and you probably have received emails from him as well. You're going to hear from him a little later in this presentation. We also have two other colleagues that you could hear from throughout the year. Laura McBride and Gage Tillman. They were unable to make it today, but Laura is on the budget side and Gage is on the performance. And you'll see all of our contact information at the end of the presentation. Okay. So I'll just begin with a little bit of housekeeping. This session is being recorded and will be available afterwards on the website if you need to rewatch it or have any of your coworkers rewatch. In addition to the recording on the website, we'll send out this presentation and a couple of other important links, such as the application and the website, different things like that. If you have any questions during this session, please wait until you see a slide that signifies a pause for questions. You'll have an opportunity to use this microphone right here. To make sure your questions are recorded clearly. If you have not signed in yet, we do have 3 sheets. They were on the front tables up here. Just make sure you fill one in before you leave. All right, without further ado. So these are the topics we're going to cover today. We're going to review the purpose of the CSG program, process and timeline, eligibility and reporting requirements, our sunset policy, and application submission, including the performance and budget templates. So, and then at the end, we'll also have an opportunity for questions. So, the CSG program is an opportunity for Mecklenburg County to partner with nonprofit organizations to help meet the needs of our community. As you can see from this word cloud, the CSG program serves multiple purposes. In fiscal year 23 alone, 13 providers were selected that served a variety of residents across the entirety of our community. Here's a review of the full process. We start out here at the information session today. The application opened up today as well. That is live on our website. You will have an opportunity until December 5th to get your application in. From that point, all applications will be reviewed by a panel, and recommended programs will go into the budget. Will get presented to the board in May. You will be notified if you are one of those selected programs that goes into the recommended budget. It can change at any moment with the board or any type of executive team decisions. So it will go into the recommended budget. You will be notified. Okay, and then you'll have an orientation session in July if you make the final adopted budget CSG program. All right, so now that we've heard about the purpose and process, let's look at eligibility and reporting requirements. So who is eligible? You must serve the residents of Mecklenburg County, have a 501c3 nonprofit designation with the IRS, have financial statements audited by an independent CPA, have documentation supporting a diversified workforce, be a part of a professional membership that supports the organization's sustainability efforts. We get a lot of questions on this one. So North Carolina Center for Nonprofits is an example of that. If you are a certain type of nonprofit that, kind of comes under an umbrella of a larger nonprofit, that's another professional organization that you might belong to. You also must be registered with the Secretary of State. And when you get this presentation, you can just click on this link. You don't have to write it down from here. And then you also must clearly contribute to one of our 4 goal areas. And here they are. So connected community includes services in the community that foster access to physical, social, and information resources for all residents and visitors in our community. Economic opportunities include services in the community that enhance the economic stability and success of our current and future residents. Healthy community includes services in the community that create a culture of health and wellness for our residents, customers, and employees. Safe community includes services in the community that support the need for individuals who come into contact with the criminal justice system. Details on the goal areas can be found in the county strategic business plan at mecnc.gov, and that link right there, if you click on it in the presentation, will go directly to the strategic business plan as well. So I briefly mentioned the audited financial statements. That's another area that gets a lot of questions. So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into that one for you guys. So what we're looking for is audited financial statements that are prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP. And it must be audited by an independent CPA. They must issue a clean, unqualified opinion and must include the balance sheet, income statement, and statement of cash flows. The year-end date must be no more than 12 months prior to the beginning of the contract term. So, for example, June 30th, 22 for the fiscal year 24 program. Continued. There are a lot of questions on these. So audited financial statements, Once we receive the audit, the finance department for the county will evaluate the financial statements to make sure there's sufficient cash to cover your operations. They'll make sure you aren't operating on debt and your funding, and also check your funding dependents, just to name a few. Ultimately, it is our finance department's decision, and they will recommend that the county should or should not enter into an agreement with the organization. Again, FY22 audited financial statements are due by April 1st, 2023. All right, sunset policy. Programs, and I'll be very clear here, programs, not organizations, that are awarded funding for 3 consecutive fiscal years. So for you all, that would be FY21 through 23, will be sunset from the CSG program. Organizations with sunset programs may apply for consideration as a vendor for FY24 using our new vendor application. You will see the link for that coming up, and I'll also email that to organizations that are eligible. Sunset programs not selected to become a vendor must wait 3 consecutive fiscal years to apply for CSG funding again. All right. Before we move on to the application process, does anyone have any questions about initial information? Again, we have a microphone. You want to come around to the microphone over here?
Hello.
Hey.
So the application deadline is December 5th. But the audited financial statements are due April 23rd, or April 23.
Yes. And that's
So
because
we don't have to submit the audited financial statement with the application.
So I'll show you the full application in a minute.
Okay.
There will be an attestation making sure that you will have one
Perfect.
for
Thank you.
this year. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, got one more.
I'm representing two nonprofits that are just starting up in Cornelius. Does the 503C have to be approved by the December 5th deadline or just before the contract is awarded? Because we're in the process of applying for that.
Before the contract is awarded.
Thank you.
Just had to make sure with the bosses over here.
I had it too.
All right, anybody else? Okay. Well, come on down.
If we already receive funding from Mecklenburg County elsewhere, can we still apply for this grant as well?
Yes, you can.
Thank
You will be reviewed regardless of whether you have prior year funding. Except for the sunset policy, that is very program specific for 3 years, so. All right. Okay, I will move on to the applications. All right, so I'm gonna walk through completing an application in the following slides. Here's the CSG application, and that's the vendor application. You can find that on our website, and I will also send that out afterwards. Again, deadline is December 5th, before midnight, 11:59. All right. Okay, so go back. This link is for one of the two types of applications. You should only fill out the vendor application if you are eligible for that. And I will point out the differences between vendor and CSG application as we go along if that's what you're eligible for. But I'm going to basically just focus on the CSG application today. All right, so once you click on this link, the first screen you'll see when you go there is this. Amplifund is the program that we use. You'll click on Apply in the upper right-hand corner, way up there. That will bring you to a login screen where you'll register so that you can save and come back if needed. All organizations are able to submit applications for multiple programs, and that's what that kind of helps you do is you have one organization, you can submit multiple programs. All right. When you get to the application, you will always see these 4 navigation circles at the top that show you where you are in the application. What you're seeing right here is the opportunity details page. Nothing to really do here, but just show it to you. Click Save and Continue. Right, this is the project information page. Notice there's a check mark at the top on the opportunity details circle, and that signifies that it is complete. You'll fill in the application information, including application name, amount requested, and primary contact information. I believe that is part of registration too, so make sure you fill all of that in. Everything that is required to fill in will have an asterisk throughout the whole application, so it can alert you if you try to submit and there is a box that's not filled in somewhere. All right, so you will click on Mark as Complete once you've filled this in. And also each time you navigate through the pages, focus on Mark as Complete. That's your friend. All right, so these are the 4 application forms. You'll click on each of these items to fill them in. As you fill them in, you will be brought back to this page to select the next form to complete. So first is the proposal cover sheet. You will fill in program, organization, director's contact, and then hit Mark as Complete. The second form that you'll fill in is required documents, and this is to answer your question. I can't find her. Yeah, to answer your question. The audited financial statement attestation is new. It's basically asking if you have an audit or will have one by April 1st, 2023. If you have one, you can upload it here. If not, you can email it to us when you do have it, anytime after December 5th. And that, again, that's the application close date. Other documents that are required to attach here are an IRS letter, articles of incorporation, proof of workforce representation, and salary disclosure. That's usually your top leadership. And then mark as complete. So program narrative has a bulk of more in-depth application questions. It asks about the history of the program, including the number of years the program has been in operation. Again, that's the program, not organization. These are new questions this year. It asks if you're a current CSG recipient and if you have been sunset, how is the program that you are applying for in this application different than the one that is sunset? Does everybody understand that one? Okay. Everybody? All right. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to hand it off to Grant, and he's going to go through a little bit more of the program narrative and some performance information.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Grant McMillan. I am the performance lead for the CSG program. And so the program narrative, just to reiterate, this is where the bulk of your information is going to be entered into the application. We have 4 major parts of this form. The problem statement, the target population and service geography, the service delivery strategy, and the proposed service results. The problem statement, this is where you will briefly describe what your program will do and the specific need that your program is going to address. We also ask that you provide and cite local research or data findings that help define or illustrate the problem or the need that needs to be addressed in the community. The target population and service geography is the second form. This is where you will describe the population that you are planning to serve and where you plan to do it, and also how members of the target population are selected for the program. Your target population, again, so those can be high school students, small business owners, those at or under 40% of AMI. Just define who you are looking to serve with your program, who you're targeting. The service geography, it can be where your facility is located, so 123 ABC Street, or if you're targeting certain zip codes, or if you want to just provide services in a general area of the county or all throughout the county, that is your service geography. Also, we just want to know how people are selected or brought into the program, whether it's an application or if you guys get referrals. Information on that would be very helpful to us. New this year, we do have a small text box as part of this section. We ask that you provide the number of individuals or households served by this program, just so that we have a better understanding of how many people you all are trying to serve. The service delivery strategy is the third section. This is where we ask you to explain the strategy, including staff, key activities, and any collaborations and partnerships that you will use to address the problem identified in the problem statement. We also ask that you provide evidence that your strategy will be successful. And finally, the fourth question on this form is the proposed service results. We ask that you describe the methods for tracking and collecting data that this program will generate and the results that this service will deliver. But the main part of this question is the performance template. So down at the very, very bottom, you'll see FY2024 CSG performance template. Click on that and it will automatically download to your computer. And this is what you will see. This is the fiscal year 2024 performance template. And I'm going to walk through this template over the next few slides. But a few things just to keep in mind as you're working through this performance template. Fiscal year 23 is still in progress, so be sure to list your year-to-date results. We do ask that you include ambitious but also attainable performance targets. So we do want to see stretch targets, but it's something that is also realistically you're able to achieve. And finally, with calculation methodologies, we ask that they are very specific, but again, I will cover calculation methodologies and go over each component of the template more in detail over the next few slides. So where do we get outputs and outcomes from? Every program requires resources or inputs, and these are resources that you need to operate your program. So whether that's facilities, staff, CSG funding, or vehicles, or anything of that nature that goes into your program. But using those resources, you're going to accomplish activities. From those activities, you will provide services, and the benefit that your participants receive from those services are your program outcomes. So from these last two parts of your program, that's where we want to draw output measures and outcome measures. So I've already covered the first two, outputs and outcomes, but we also have the last three, so calculation methodologies, performance history, and proposed 24 targets. So just to reiterate, an output is a basic count of what is done or produced through your programs. So that would be like a number of meetings held, or a number of vaccines administered, or a number of meals served. Those would be basic outputs of your program. Outcome measures are the results of all of those outputs, and they highlight the overall impact of your basic services and the benefits that they provide to your participants. So the percent of your clients that are placed in jobs, or the percent of students that are that increase their grade point average, and the percent of participants that graduate from the training program. Just as a point of clarification, output measures are commonly a count or a number of what has happened, but an outcome is a calculation. It's a percentage of what has been done, so we could see the overall impact of who has benefited from the program. Generally, we would like to see 6 to 8 performance measures included on the performance template that are in addition to the 2 that we provide. So that's 3 to 4 output measures and 3 to 4 outcome measures that are created by you all. Calculation methodology. Outputs, again, are commonly a count of what has been done, so it could be count of clients served. But the tricky part is with outcomes. Outcomes are commonly a percentage. So we like to see the numerator, the denominator, and how you arrive at that final result. So the number of students that graduate divided by the number of students participating in the program is equal to the percent of people who graduated from the program. The performance history is just results for the past few years. I think we ask back to fiscal year 21 for performance data. And that just helps strengthen your position for why targets should be set where they are. And speaking of targets, they're based on your performance history, and they should be both ambitious and attainable. Again, they should be those stretch targets, but they should also be realistic that you could achieve within one fiscal year. I did speak about the 2 required performance measures, and these are the 2. So the first one is the number of unduplicated individuals served by Mecklenburg County Community Service Grant. The target for this measure is how many individuals you plan to serve with CSG funding. So if all of your program participants will be served by CSG funding and other funding, but everyone will be served by all dollars, then the target for this measure is just how many people you're planning to serve for the year. So if your organization does not link participants to a specific funding source, then report the total of everybody. But I know with some organizations that are in the health and human services space, different grants have different requirements tied to them. Therefore, it is helpful for them to say, these people are served by CSG funding, and the other people in the program are served by state or federal or just other funding. So if you make that distinction between who's served by what funding, then you will use this second performance measure. So the number of unduplicated individuals served by other funding sources. And so when you add these two up, it should be the total number of individuals that you're planning to serve, whether you have the total and 0 or you have a combination of the two, but everything should add up to your total. So once you've finished completing this performance template, go back to Amplifund and then click on Choose File, and you can upload it directly from wherever you have it saved on your desktop. And with that, I will turn it back over to Lauren.
Right, okay. So the next part of this section is on the budget proposal. Please don't let this intimidate you. This is my job, but I know that nobody else does this on a regular basis, but you know. So the next part is where you'll be asked to provide a description of how funds will be used to support the program, and also describe the future of the program if CSG funding is not awarded for FY24. In the same way that you just downloaded the performance template, you'll also do the same for the budget template. So you'll just click to download, and then, all right. So this is what it looks like. You'll complete the document for the specific program that you're requesting funding for. You'll add your total organization budget, total program budget, and select your budget cycle at the top. You'll add budget and actuals for FY22 and 23, and your budget proposal for next year. FY24 is split into the different categories for salary funding, funding for direct client assistance, program supplies, materials, equipment, program-related staff training, travel, mileage. It's also split into direct and indirect costs, and I will go through those on a different slide just to explain what that is. The last two columns have a formula to help you auto fill in the change, the dollar change, and the percent change. Okay, so these are your expenses, and then these are your revenues. So who else will be giving you funding for this program? And you'll give the historical information as well. Last two columns are auto-populated. So this section highlighted in yellow towards the bottom is sort of a system of checks and balances. It's there to help you. If any of these three cells appear in red and say false, then you know something's wrong, and you'll have to go back and adjust your numbers. So the easiest to understand is that you must show a balanced budget in both FY23 and 24. That's the second and third items here. That means your expense total must match your revenue total. You can't have more or less than the other one in any of them. So I'll explain the first one on the next slide, but before I flip over there, you will need to check on the equal opportunity employer statement down here. And then also, once your form is complete, you'll do a PDF or print it out, have your fiscal officer and executive director sign and date before you turn it into us. Okay, all right. All right, so administrative and indirect expenses. So the county will support administrative and or indirect community service grant program expenses at no more than 4% of direct program expenses. So the true false auto check in the Excel sheet makes sure that the total Mecklenburg revenue is less than or equal to 4% of the total direct costs. You can click on that in the sheet and see what's happening if it helps you to understand it better. Direct program expenses include salaries, benefits, fringe for direct program staff, funds for direct client assistance, program supplies, materials and equipment, in-county travel, mileage, training incurred as part of the program delivery. Administrative and indirect expenses include, but are not limited to, indirect and leadership personnel expenses, facility rent, maintenance, utilities, security, software licenses and telecommunication charges, and fundraising. Grantees do not have to itemize administrative and indirect expenses and may add 4% to itemized direct program expenses. Total payments will not exceed the grant amount. Okay, everybody got that? All right, so I'm gonna go back to, if you notice up here where it says 3, program narrative, you know that's what form you're on. So we're still on program narrative. You would complete your budget template, save it on your desktop, and then upload it onto here. Choose the file from your own computer. You would add your peer references. We're asking for 3 of those from peer organizations, and just contact information for those organizations is required. You will mark as complete. All right, here's the last page where you will self-select one of the goal areas. This is required as part of the program. You can read the description there and just self-select where you would fit into the CSG program from there. In addition, this is also another new item this year is self-selecting what board priority you align under, and those are also listed here. Mark as complete. Right? See somebody taking a picture? Pause. Okay. All right, so this is the last page where you can either click review or submit your application. Once you submit your application, you can't go back to edit it. You can sign in multiple times and edit as long as you did not hit the submit button, okay? I'm gonna reiterate this. The mark as complete and save and continue buttons are your friends. Make sure you click on mark as complete. All right, so this is the application process. You might be wondering what happens to my application after this. Besides the general, it goes through the review process, and Grant is gonna go through that with you and close us out.
Okay, so you've submitted your application and it's sent to Mecklenburg County. So what exactly happens after that? This year we are unveiling a new system of application scoring. So each application will be reviewed using a weighted scale by a panel of subject matter experts that are county employees. I do want to make this very, very clear. The application scoring and the score that your application receives is only one component used to make final funding decisions. There are many, many, many things that go into who we fund and at what funding level. So this is just one way for us to get an initial starting point for how applications stack up against each other. So with each application section, we have a section weight. So the problem statement is 25% of the overall score. The target population and service geography is 10%. The service delivery strategy is 25%. Proposed service results is 10%. The performance measures, which is your performance template, is 10%. And the budget proposal and budget narrative are 20% combined. So that is the budget narrative and the budget template are both worth 20%. So that is everything. Here are the links to the applications again. I would like to reiterate the application closes December the 5th at 11:59 p.m. If you are new to the CSG program, please use the top link, or if you are applying for another year of CSG funding, use the top link. But if you are one of the 5 organizations that we have already outreach to, please use the second vendor application link. Other funding sources. Mecklenburg County has partnered with the United Way to provide funding for local grassroots organizations that do that advance racial equity. They address economic mobility, but they also have an annual budget of less than $250,000. So if the CSG program and getting the audit done and submitting all of these forms might be a little too much for your organization, and you're just starting out, please look into Unite Charlotte as another funding source from Mecklenburg County and United Way. Unite Charlotte does have priority for organizations led by people of color. Applications are in August, so that would be August of 2023 next year. And we have the link here for Unite Charlotte. And at this time, I would like to open up the floor for any questions that you all might have. Here you have everyone's contact information, but you can always outreach to us through the general email at the very, very top, which is grants@mecnc.gov. I do have a QR code down to, Lauren, is that the? That's the website. That is our CSG website on mecnc.gov, where this orientation session will be posted, the PowerPoint will be posted, but also links to the applications will also be posted. So the webpage on mecnc.gov is your one-stop shop for everything CSG program related. So look forward to reviewing applications that are submitted by y'all. And at this time, we'll be happy to answer any questions. Yes.
Just for clarification purposes on the budget template, I noticed this year it looked like you didn't have to break down each individual expense by what the CSG grant would cover and what other funders cover. Is that correct?
Just in the revenue section.
Right.
Yeah,
But previously you had to split each individual line item by what CSG covered and what the other covered.
No.
You don't have to do that
Yeah,
anymore.
no.
Awesome. Thanks.
I don't know if I missed this or not, but the total, the range for grant awards in dollar amounts, do you have a range?
There is no limit. It's just whatever your program is in need of, I guess.
Okay.
But you have to be able to justify that amount. So as long as in your budget proposal narrative section, you do explain what that funding is used for and why you need that amount, you should be.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so with the two templates you provided, for FY, the earlier years before your proposed results or your proposed budgets, do we need to provide that information even if we were not funded by CSG in previous years?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, so even if it's like the program has changed or grown or this is an expansion, those aren't going to be apples to apples numbers. Is that okay?
That is okay. If you want to add an explanation in there, I know for performance, you can add that as a explanation in the narrative. In the performance proposal, you can also add that information just to explain for your proposal.
Okay, is there a place to do that for the budget as well?
You can do it in the narrative directly in the application.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
So in those narrative sections, do you guys have a maximum character count?
We do. It's
Yes.
new. 2,000.
2,000,
So,
okay. That's important when you're telling a story.
It
Yes.
is. It is.
So we did institute 2,000 characters, which is just over a page double-spaced, and that's to encourage concise writing in these applications. Yes, it does include spaces. Yes.
My question is in regards to the budget, the 4% addition, or what exactly do you guys mean by that?
let me scoot back to this slide. Okay, so, so these are the administrative costs. Maybe, well, I was gonna say, so, let me do this.
And to clarify, you guys cover administrative costs and you don't cover program costs, or do you cover
Up to
both?
4%.
Up to 4%
Yes,
of
up to
administrative
4%
costs?
Of the total, yes.
Okay.
So what it's doing is, it's taking the total of this direct program expense, so these added up, and then your revenue, your total here, revenue from just for Mecklenburg County, and making sure that it's only 4% of that, of the Mecklenburg County portion.
Okay.
So your direct is 4% of this total number.
Okay.
If you need more clarification on that, we can send you some information via email. We can send it to everybody and just to make sure.
I have two questions. So the first one, in regard to the first category that you're focused on, can you go back to that slide? Because I don't want to misread it, where it's listing them.
So in the forms, the program narrative.
Well, the four focus areas that you had, like the
Okay, yeah.
healthy and safe.
Yeah. It's further back. Okay, here you go.
So with the first one where you say for all residents and visitors in our community, if the organization is focused on like certain neighborhoods, would they be eligible for that category?
Yeah.
If-
So it's understood that there are certain niche populations that need certain care, certain services, and the county is not able to provide that. So that's where y'all come in to help fill that niche. So as long as you explain that in the target population and service geography section, why you chose that population, why you chose those neighborhoods,
Okay.
that should be sufficient
Okay,
information.
great, thank you. The second one, on the peer organizations, are you mostly interested in other nonprofits or cross-sector organizations okay to use for that?
Probably nonprofits,
Okay,
but I guess if you need to use other organizations as well, you can.
okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Come on up.
Might be a really obvious question, and apologies if it is, is the amount that an organization asks for, is it sort of an all or nothing, or might you say, we'll give you part of that sum?
It can be recommended to be a partial recommendation.
Okay.
Sorry to use recommendation in the same word, in the same sentence twice. So our review panel, when they go through, they are able to select, a certain amount, a certain decrease. Could be depending on what you were funded last year, if you were given money last year. Also, each level of the review process, not just the review panel, can make that decision that it needs to be more or less.
Okay,
So
thank you.
it can go up, it can go down. So.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay. Oh, I got one over here and then do you.
Excuse me. Great afternoon. A.W. Burgess, Family Mankind. I think it would help many of us if you provided an example of a budget. For instance, if you put 100,000, it'd be easy for us to see that, what 4% really amounts to.
Okay.
And then what is qualified. I mean, just like with the outcomes and the outputs you gave as an example, I think that would kind of cut down on a lot of folks guessing at what that looks like.
Okay.
Just
Yep.
as a recommendation.
I can send that out. Just make sure everybody has signed in on one of these sheets, and I'll make sure that everybody goes.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sorry, one more question. So how many how many organizations have you already funded? And then how many organizations do you intend to fund this grant period?
There's no exact number. So organizations can ask for a variety of amounts of funding. So I guess depending on how much funding is requested by each organization and where they fall in the review process, just depends. If it's very competitive and the top 5 are high level of funding, then maybe other organizations wouldn't, or other programs. It's all up to the review process.
What's allocated for this particular grant
There's
period?
no amount actually allocated for this program. It is, so it's sort of based off of last year, but it can fluctuate with the budget process, and funding is not ever guaranteed.
Okay, well, is there some type of list of what you guys already funded?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
you can see it in our budget document online. If you go to the CSG website and just go back a level, I can send that as well.
And there's also a link on mecnc.gov of who is currently funded and what they're currently funded for.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Good afternoon. My name is Queen Smalls. I am with Vision to Learn. So this is our first year being invited to submit an RFP for this funding. And I'm getting that it's annual funding. Is that right? And this is for the funding cycle 2024. So once we submit this proposal, and by chance we are granted the opportunity to receive the funding, if that funding isn't appropriated, are there clawbacks? If all of the money isn't spent within that cycle?
So you'll be, if you are selected in our adopted budget, you will submit invoices, expense reports, and performance templates quarterly for reimbursement. So whatever you spend each quarter is what we will give you funding for. If you don't spend the full amount, it's just the end of the year and it's lost.
Okay. And is Part B, is this reporting is monthly? And excuse me, I was a little tardy to the party, so I might have missed that part, but is the reporting, are there monthly performance measures
Not
that need to be
monthly.
submitted?
It is quarterly.
Quarterly.
And that's something we handle in the post-award orientation that will be going into more specific, go into more detail about post-award.
Okay,
If you are selected in July is when the orientation would be.
in July. Okay, thank you so much.
Yes.
Oh, we had her. It's okay. Lots of questions. That's good. Y'all can learn from each other too.
This isn't so much of a question as it is a statement in regards to those who are in the room. I know there may be some people that are very privy to this type of information, maybe done multiple grants before and things of that nature, but also that are individuals such as the budget. That's very vague in the explanation and how it is being said. I know that you do budget, so it's very simple for you just to say, hey, this is 4%. But to understand for these organizations and how they're spending their money and exactly how to look at it so that people walk out of here not with a vague understanding and having to go do more research, because things of this, I do understand grants are about research as well, but coming here is for a clear, concise, to walk out of here with a clear knowledge of what needs to be implemented. And I just feel like in coming in here, I want to be able to walk out with a hope that I know that what I'm getting ready to go do is actually going to be beneficial for my program. But I can't walk out of here with 4% and try to figure that out according to my thing. So it would just be better for the budget standpoint and just so more organizations have that opportunity. Thank you.
Yep, this is my boss, Lyden Williams, and he will take it from here.
Thank you, sir, for that question. I was going to step up at the end. So good afternoon, everybody. Lyden Williams, Deputy Budget Director, and we're also joined by our Budget Director, Adrian Cox, at the back. So I do want to spend some time talking about the 4%, just so we're all on the same page about what that means, because this is new for this process and really new to the county. So let me go to that slide. Is it ahead? All right, so when we think about community service grant programs, the county's interest is serving residents, right? And serving residents directly is our primary interest. And so when we think about how we want to reimburse these expenses, we've got these 4 categories here. Our direct expenses, we got 2 categories, and there are 4 types of direct expenses. There are salaries, benefits, and fringe for direct program staff. These are individuals that serve clients directly, that carry a caseload, that are working in a clinic, that are providing workshops on economic opportunity, things like that. Then there are funds for direct client assistance if your program is providing a rental subsidy or is providing utility assistance, things like that. That would be a direct program expense. Supplies, materials, and equipment, that's pretty straightforward. And then in-county travel. So if your program requires you to go see a client at their house or visit them at a shelter or in the jail, that's what we'll reimburse for. Okay. Can I finish, and then I'll keep going? So those are the direct program expenses. For administration, what the county will pay for is no more than 4% of those direct expenses. So if the county is going to pay $100,000 of salary and benefits, we will pay no more than $4,000 for other expenses not directly related to the program, for things like executives, software, rent, maintenance, stuff like that. And so that's really how we get at funding programs and not overhead. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, and so this is new, and I wanted to speak to it. So any other questions, please?
No, but I appreciate that. That was my original question, like you guys covered direct program expenses and then 4% of it.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Just for clarification, I think you believe you guys is 4% of that total those program expenses at each one of the bullets.
Say that again, sir, I'm sorry.
Your 4% on top of the total of your program expenses.
That's right.
Not 4% of each one of those line items.
No, 4% total, and I think it'd be helpful to look at the budget template. So when you do your budget template, what we're first asking are what are the direct expenses for your program? So what are we going to be spending on direct program staff, client assistance, supplies, and training mileage, things like that. And so those 4 boxes will give you a total direct program budget. And then below that, this is where you will record your indirect costs. So how much of the program's cost will you assign to your executive director, your finance director, your HR department, your facilities rent, the software licenses that you have to pay for Microsoft, things like that. And then if you go to the next slide, what we're looking for here is for the Mecklenburg County portion of the program. What's in that box should be no more than all the direct program expense plus 4%. Because if it's more than 4%, now you're asking the county to pay for all the direct program expense plus more than 4% for admin. And the county's not interested in that. We want to fund direct programs and not overhead. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Any other questions? And what Laura was talking about, that first true box, that's going to do that math for you. So the way that formula will work is going to add up your direct program expense, add 4% to it, and if what you key for Mecklenburg County revenue is more than direct program plus 4%, it's going to give you an error. So that's how it'll work. Okay. All right.
I just have one more question over here, but I didn't think that was before this section.
Yeah.
Thanks, Slide.
Hi, good afternoon. I have 2 questions about the focus area. Probably I might have missed it. Do we have to select just one focus area, or it could be more than one?
You would select the one that you most closely fall under.
Okay.
And in the application, we do have the strategic business plan linked. And so you can review our county's 20 through 22 strategic business plan. We are still finalizing the 23 through 25. But that should be out in the next couple of months. So you will be linked to our 20 through 22 strategic business plan. But these 4 goal areas are going to remain the same this upcoming strategic business plan cycle. And you'll have pages of information on what these 4 goal areas mean to the county.
When we go back to the budget, the last page on the budget, so it says fiscal officer. Is that optional, or do we need a a fiscal officer for?
If you don't have one, your executive director is the only one. That's, yeah.
Okay.
You could just-
Sure, thank you.
It's being recorded, so it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Could you go back to measurements, please? And if your program is focused on access, and you can prove outputs, but your nonprofit looks at national outcomes because that research has not been done on a local level, is that acceptable?
So what we would like to see is what's been done in Mecklenburg County, that the people who are being served in the county are benefiting from this service. So we would like to see outcomes that are from Mecklenburg County because that's who the county is paying to serve. Does that make sense?
If it's never been done in Mecklenburg County, then you would start with whatever year it has been done in Mecklenburg County. For your program here.
So I'm specifically actually referring to educational outcomes, and many of us who work in the educational field, we cannot take credit for educational outcomes because those are CMS's outcomes, and we cannot directly prove unless we do a massive research project and so on and so forth. But there are national educational, there's international educational research showing that if you do X, these are the expected outcomes. So that's really where my question is. It gets kind of touchy for those of us who are working in that space, but not the school system.
So I think we would have to evaluate on a program-by-program basis at that point because this is more geared for, organizations that have like more set measures and what can be applied to the county. And so I would like to say that if you are selected for funding, either myself or my counterpart, Gage Tillman, we would outreach to you and we would go through your performance measures and we would rework them to make sure that they fit and that they're good quality, strong performance measures that go into the contract. But I guess my advice would be to try to adapt those national outcomes as best you can and try to make them Mecklenburg County specific, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
You have a question? No? Okay.
No, I
Okay.
was just responding to that national piece. Because anytime you're, like we do work with a national organization, they break it down to where those numbers are coming from statewide, per state or per county. So you just utilize the part that represents Mecklenburg County.
Correct.
Yes.
Hi. Would you consider a capital investment for the community in a successful grant application?
That's a great question. So typically, the Community Service Grant Program, because it's an annual grant, we're looking to fund staff and programs, not capital. And so not typically, but I'll say that it's not explicitly prohibited to submit a grant application for capital. So I won't tell you not to submit it, but since I've been with the county, we have not funded any capital through the CSG program. But it's not explicitly prohibited.
Follow-up question. Is there a more appropriate avenue for requesting funding for capital investments?
So the county did just announce round 2 of our American Rescue Plan Act fund, and I know an eligible expense for that program is capital, and that's being considered. So I would encourage you, if you have a capital request, to go through that route. That application's open now as well.
Yeah, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I have another one, I'm sorry. The Mecklenburg County specific counting of statistics and impact. We're a nonprofit medical clinic and we're in Mecklenburg County, but some of our patients might live in surrounding counties. Do we need to parse out patients from where? Does their address matter or does our address matter?
Ideally, they would be separated so that way we could focus on specifically the Mecklenburg County residents.
Okay.
We have some programs where they're able to do that, but ideally, we really want to focus in on who's done in Mecklenburg County. If that's not the case, then we can discuss estimations of what % of your clients come from Mecklenburg County and what % live outside of the county, and we can go from there. But that would be handled in the post-award performance review.
Okay, thanks.
Any more questions? All right. I'll just end with, we're always here to help. If you have any questions after the session, you can always reach out to us. I am going to send out an email with the things that were requested during this session. And if you need anything, just, yeah, let us
I'll put
know.
up our
Do what? We can, yeah.
So there's our contact information. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions.
How did Laura Engage get 704 numbers?